King Charles altered Queen's funeral plans last minute to avoid embarrassing moment. Despite the Queen's funeral being planned and replanned continuously since the 1960s, King Charles III made last-minute alterations to avoid members of the royal family stepping over horse muck, a report has claimed. It has also been suggested that the new king wanted to be seen properly by crowds and that his new changes allowed for this to happen. According to the Mail on Sunday, Charles changed the long-standing plans at the 11th hour after the details were released by Buckingham Palace 4 days before the event. The initial plans indicated that a procession of horses would directly follow the Queen's coffin after the funeral as it was pulled to Wellington Arch. It was then thought that King Charles and his siblings, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew, and Prince Edward would follow the horses on foot. The plans were subsequently scrapped by the new monarch with the horses moved back to walk behind the royals. According to a source, in the days before the funeral, Charles felt he wouldn't be seen properly and that either he ought to be on horseback or, if he was walking, then the horses should move further back. There was also the issue of would the new king end up having to sidestep horse muck? Which would obviously not be appropriate. Those who watched the procession will have noticed that the king made a good decision as the following bands and military personnel were forced to step over the horse muck. The plans had to some extent prepared for such events with the roads surrounding Westminster Abbey covered in sand to ensure the horses and carriages were stable and not slipping. It has also been claimed that the king wanted plans changed so that he could be seen properly. With the king and other senior royals on foot, it is more difficult for the crowds to see them. It is not known if the seating arrangements were changed last minute, but the new king ensured Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were seated in a place of honor during the funeral. While their relationship has been strained, the funeral appeared to bring Charles, William, and Harry closer than they have been in a while. Harry sat behind his father in a move which was seen as a snub by some, but other royal commentators noted that the front row was the Queen's children who were bearing tremendous grief. Christine Ross said on the Royally Us podcast, "I actually think Harry being behind his father was actually a comfort for King Charles." Christina Garibaldi agreed and added, "You couldn't get any closer to the king unless you were sitting right next to him." Further into the podcast, royal historian and commentator Gareth Russell said that Harry and Meghan were given a place of honor at the state funeral. To be the one behind the king is actually a sign of favor. funerals. Christina Garibaldi agreed and added, "You couldn't get any closer to the king unless you were sitting right next to him." Further into the podcast, royal historian and commentator Gareth Russell said that Harry and Meghan were given a place of honor at the state funeral. To be the one behind the king is actually a sign of favor.